it's Abby. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be showing you 22 terrifying TikToks. I hope you guys had a wonderful Halloween. As you can see, I've already decorated for Christmas. I feel like I just need 2 months to fully experience the Christmas joy. 1 month is just not enough for me. So November 1st, the decorations always go up. I love Thanksgiving, but I need my Christmas tree. And I am very excited for the spooky Christmas content to come very soon. If you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Click the subscribe button down below and turn my post notifications so you would never miss a video. I post every Sunday and sometimes Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And without further ado, let's get right on into the video. Our first TikTok is by the user 1836 Haunted Historic. This user lives in a house built in 1836 in a haunted historic town. On her profile, she shares a lot of stories about encounters she's had in her historic home, and I'm going to share one with you today. In the video I'm about to show you, she tells us about a couple encounters with a ghost that appears to haunt her bathroom.
The ghost strikes again. I was brushing my teeth just now, and okay, the door is shut. The door is shut this time. Oh, you can see how I block it with the cat scratching post. There's your cat banana too. That's how I block it to make sure that that door doesn't open in the night. So I was in there brushing my teeth in the bathroom. I'll try to post a picture of my bathroom on this so you understand what I'm talking about. I'm standing at the sink, obviously. About a foot away is my tub. It's like a clawfoot tub, and it's some kind of metal, like cast iron, I think. Okay? All fine and dandy. Love my bathroom, love my tub, despite the ghost being in there. Earlier, I heard something in there, and I thought it's a mouse, because Dilly, my big cat, brought in a mouse the other day and let it go. She brought it in, I think, to tell me, and then was gonna kill it, but I said, ah, and she said, and dropped it, and it's somewhere. She may have killed it and taken it out, I don't know. But I heard something knocking on the bathtub earlier. I've never heard this before. I'm standing there brushing my teeth just now, and I heard it knocking. It sounds like, ooh, this bed is metal. That's what I heard. Just a little deeper because it's cast iron. Okay, and I'm not getting up and walking in there. I'll maybe show it on a different video, but it's metal. You knock on it, you know what metal sounds like. It's somebody knocking on metal right beside me. It's not a mouse. It is something big. Like, it couldn't be a cat, it couldn't be anything. And plus the tub, like the curtain's open, ain't nobody in my tub. Okay, this situation here in the bathroom has always been a little spooky. One time I was on a Zoom call and my BFF, hopefully she'll see this, we're talking. I somehow at some point mentioned that I was alone, and my shower came on, and she's like, what is that? And I'm like, my shower just turned on. And she's like, by who? And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, I thought you were home alone. I'm like, I am. It's the ghost. It's some ghost. It turned on. I have a witness. I was on a Zoom call. It turned on all the way. And they're like these old-timey like handles. You have to turn the knob. Like, you have to turn it to make something happen. The shower was on. And we started talking about it, and I'm like, ugh, let me go turn it off. And it turns off like before I can get there. So that was great. I've, seen like shadows in there. Like, talking about it makes me know something's gonna happen, something else is gonna happen. I think that stuff is happening more, or I'm like noticing it more because I'm telling you guys. Normally I just text my friend and I'm like, ghost alert, like this happened. Or I'll voice record the story so I don't lose it, even though we chat all day, so they're probably all like unreachable at this point. But I'm listening to see if we can hear anything. I don't hear anything, and Dilly's not in here, so we could attribute it to Dilly. But my other cat is radioactive right now, and she's locked up. So if Dilly's with me and I hear a noise, which is what happened earlier, it's not Roxy. When I moved here, my little sister was about 3 years old, and they stay over here a lot because their school's across the street. And she would talk to people in the bathroom, and she couldn't talk yet. We don't know why, but she didn't speak until she was like almost 4. And then she started talking like crazy, but when she couldn't speak that well, so we'd have to ask her questions like, who are you talking to? And she'd say, them. I'm like, who? Them. Is it a boy? Yes or no? Is it a girl? Yes or no? It was always a boy. And that's all we've ever seen that's a kid. So that was a little scary. I'd be like, where? And she'd be like, there. So yeah, the bathroom's spooky. I don't ever feel the need to close the bathroom door. Like I kind of feel uncomfortable if the bathroom door is closed. Maybe they're in here too, but I always have the fan on, so I can't hear them. Like I purposefully, even if I'm cold, I'll turn it on for the purpose of not hearing them. So yeah, that's what happened just now. A little knocking. I'm not gonna knock. I'm afraid they're gonna knock back. Like I'm not scared of them, but it's still, a lot of you have seen things, have heard things, like y'all know what it's like. Like you're scared, but you're not scared at the same time. That is what's happened. Wonder what's gonna happen now. I don't know, because I'm turning the fan on high tonight and I'm drowning it out. Oh, another thing is, this possibly could have happened more and I just don't know about it, because Dilly likes to jump into the bathtub. That's her thing. Her legs are about this long. She's real short. And she has to try like 5 times. She gets trying to get in there, like trying to get up the courage or like the calculation to get into the bathtub, but then she jumps into the bathtub and I hear that sound of her jumping in all the time, but I just assume it's her. So it's possible that sometimes it's something else, but this was like, I've never heard knock knock. So it is what it is. I'm going to bed just like I did the other night. I was all like, oh, I'm so scared, and I just passed out. So it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
I think it's interesting that this has multiple layers to it. From the experience she just had that caused her to tell us this story, which is the banging noise she heard on the tub, to the story of someone witnessing a shower turn on by itself and then back off while she's on a Zoom call, and then all the way back to her little sister potentially speaking to something in the bathroom. I think on the plus side, it doesn't seem to be any kind of negative entity. It just like is messing with her. I mean, who knows, maybe ghosts need showers too. But it does say something that she feels the need to block her bathroom door at night. I mean, obviously the things do freak her out. I mean, I for sure, even if it was like a good spirit or something like that happening in my house would still creep me out, you know? So I don't blame her for feeling the need to block off the door, but I really find the layers of activity that have happened in this bathroom interesting. Our next 2 TikToks are by the user Tati's Creepy Stories. She shares with us that her and her family have just moved to a brand new house in Hawaii, and on the very first night that they're there, her son experiences some activity while he is home alone.
So let's talk about spooky shit while I get ready. In case you haven't caught one of my lives, I recently moved to Hawaii. My husband's active duty. We're gonna be here for a couple years and it's super exciting. We finally got the house. We moved in last night. Beautiful home. We decided to go grocery shopping. You know, when you first move in, you don't have anything in the house. So my son decided that he didn't want to go to the grocery store with us. He wanted to stay here. He's really excited. We just hooked up the Wi-Fi, his new video game updated, whatever. We weren't gone for more than like 45 minutes when my son calls me and says, Mom, what time are you gonna be home? And I'm like, I'm not sure. Like, we have a bunch of stops we have to make. Why? He goes, when I was in the living room, I heard clearly a woman talking upstairs. And I'm like, oh, maybe it's the neighbors. Like, we're not familiar with the house. The house is pretty empty, so maybe it echoes. Like, it could be anything. And he's like, no, Mom, this sounded like it was literally like in the house. I heard it a couple times. He's like, I even heard footsteps, at which point I decided to just kind of wait for you outside. Like, he was on the porch. Once again, I'm trying to downplay it, like, no, you're probably just hearing things. It's a new house. Like, it's nothing. But in my heart, I'm like, okay, he's probably hearing some stuff. We end up having to rush Costco. The whole time, he literally waited for me on the porch. Like, he did not want to come back in. We get back to the house, and as soon as I walk into the house, I feel it. Like, I feel like the, how do you call it? Like the heaviness. Like, I get the chills. I feel the tension, like there's something here. I'm like, great, I just moved here. I'm not familiar with Hawaii that much. Like, I'm not really sure where to get the stuff that I would normally get in order to like cleanse homes, which is something that I probably should have thought of before we moved in, because I typically would cleanse any environment that I'm gonna be in, any new environment, I would cleanse it. It's just, we've just had so many things going on that I just didn't really think to buy anything. So I just kind of go in, and what's the most powerful thing that is at everybody's hands is prayer. So I just walk into the house and I start praying. I wait for everybody to just be downstairs. I go upstairs and I quietly just start walking from room to room, and I just start to pray and pray and pray. And at one point I'm in the hallway and it's dark, and I know that there's someone, a woman, standing like right across from me, and something in me is telling me like, don't look up, don't look up. Like, you're not gonna want to see what state that she's in. Like, don't look up. So I don't look up, and I continue to pray, and then it's like she's still there, like she's still in the house, and she's just kind of like wandering around, like trying to figure out a way out. And something in me was like, you need to open a door. Like, you prayed her out, you need to open some type of door. In the master bedroom we have a balcony, and there's a door out there. I kept hearing like the door rattle, like almost like something trying to get out. So I got up and I opened the door, and I just kind of felt like it was almost like a gush of wind like leaving the house. And at that point the house just completely like calmed down, and I didn't feel it anymore. I slept perfectly fine, he slept perfectly fine, but a lot of times when a home has been empty for a while, or who knows, the people that used to live here, what they were into, you just never know. My number one rule is anytime you move into a new home, you should always cleanse. Today I'm gonna go out and actually buy the stuff that I normally would use, like my Palo Santo, my Agua de Florida. I was trying to find some cascarilla de huevo, but that's kind of hard to find. I just bought this to like laminate my eyebrows. Have anyone used it? Because I can't quite get the hang of it. Like, it makes me feel like I just put a bunch of gel like on my eyebrows. Like, I'm still trying to get used to this situation. So, but anyways, I mean, I will see, maybe I hear her again tonight. Hopefully not, but yeah, it's fun. First day at the new house. I already have a visitor.
I can't even imagine being in your brand new house that you're not even comfortable in yet, and hearing someone walking around upstairs. I would be so scared that it wasn't even something paranormal, but it was like squatters or something. I've actually experienced something very similar to this, and it was horrifying. I had just moved out of a house that I lived in with a few roommates, but the house was still under the lease. I had just moved out a few days early, and I was coming back to pick up a package. No one was there. Everyone had like moved out, but it was still like ours. And because I had moved out, I didn't have my key anymore. So the front door was just like left unlocked because there was nothing in there and no one was there, just so I could go get my package. So I walked in the front door and I grabbed my package, and I was just amazed at how empty the house looked. And I kind of made a few laps around the living area, like taking a video of the empty space just to like remember it for myself. As I'm standing there inside the house about to leave to go walk back to my car, I'm like scrolling on my phone real quick, and all of a sudden I hear footsteps coming from the back room. And I like booked it out of there because no one was in that house, or at least no one should have been in that house. None of my like previous roommates were in that house. Everyone was gone and in their new prospective homes. It was only me there, like going to get my package, and there were footsteps. So I have no idea whether it was something paranormal or if someone decided to just try door handles at houses and found out that that one was unlocked because no one was there. Probably not the brightest idea to leave it unlocked, but again, no one was there. But so to this day, I have no idea if it was a person or something supernatural, but the feeling of being in a house that you know is completely vacant and hearing footsteps is, oh, like, I don't even know. It sent me into fight or flight. Like, I was so terrified. And obviously I chose flight. I ran back to my car and I sat in there and I was like staring at the door waiting for someone to come out because I was like, I heard footsteps. I was expecting maybe someone to like book it out of there because they realized that like someone was home or something like that, but nothing. So I don't know. Being in a house that you know for 100% certain is empty and hearing footsteps walking around is not a good feeling. And I think it also says a lot too that like he was excited to like set up his video games and start playing and stuff, and yet he ended up sitting out on the porch instead because he was so freaked out he couldn't ignore it and didn't want to be in the house. I think that says a lot for like a young boy to give up their video games to sit on the porch and do nothing. I mean, that doesn't happen unless there's a good reason for it. In the part 2, she tells us the actions she took to kind of banish this woman's spirit, as well as a new activity that has been popping up since.
So this is a quick little update on my haunted house situation. If you want to watch the original video, you can kind of follow the links down here. It's going to take you to the first one that I posted a couple days ago. But just to give you a quick little recap, we recently moved to Hawaii. The house that we ended up at turns out it's extremely haunted. It was built on an ancient burial ground, so it has a ton of activity. The first day we were here, my son heard a woman upstairs. I went ahead and cleansed the home, but since then, we have continued to have experiences. A couple nights ago, my dog woke up at exactly midnight, really needing to go use the bathroom. Half asleep, I made my way downstairs. I opened the front door to let the dog out. When I happen to look up, I see a little girl standing right in the center of the front yard, just staring back at me. I know, of course, it's not an actual little girl. It's a super angry, trying to make their way back in. I right away tell my dog to hurry up, and I kind of slam the door. Continue to say my prayers. I go to bed. The next night, I'm laying in bed. Right across from the bed, there's a door. We have a balcony right across the bed. It has a large door with like a glass window. We do have a curtain cover in it, but if anyone were to stand on the other side of it, we could see their silhouette. As I'm trying to go to sleep, I happen to look at that door and I see the silhouette of what looks to be a little girl standing on the other side of it, just looking in. I get up. I pretty much let her know, like, you're not welcomed. I start to pray again, and I do go to sleep. Now, fast forward to last night. It's about 2 to 3 a.m. I wake up. I hear what sounds like a little girl humming in the room. But I mean, this humming is so loud that it literally sounds like it's coming from inside the room, even though I know it's outside. Once again, I say my prayers, I rebuke it, I tell it it's not welcomed, and I go back to sleep because you have to give this stuff as little attention as you possibly can. Now, fast forward to today. It was about 2 p.m. I'm sitting literally right here. My husband's sitting over there. We're watching a movie. We're actually watching the new Quiet Place. It's actually pretty good. We're sitting there just watching the movie. Out of nowhere, he mutes the movie. I look at him like, why are you muting the movie? He goes, don't you hear that? I'm like, no. And he goes, we hear a little girl humming. It literally sounds like a little girl is humming in the living room. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. We're actually getting ready to go out to dinner. So we're not exactly sure what we're going to have waiting for us when we get here. I do know that this thing has not been able to make its way into the house, but it's pissed off that it's stuck outside. And I know any chance it gets, it's going to try to swoop right on in. So yeah, I'll keep you guys updated.
I've said it before, like at least a few times. I do not like little kid ghosts because in my opinion, the majority of the time, they're not actually little kids. They're just pretending to be kids to let your guard down, and it is something far more evil. So I hope that she can do whatever she can to keep this thing at bay. I think it's a really good sign that she was able to get that woman to leave and kind of like cleared that energy. And to me, that makes me confident that maybe she'll be able to kind of keep whatever this little girl spirit is at bay or make her go away. But I would just have such a hard time existing in that home knowing that there is not even like a little girl spirit, but like something evil pretending to be a little girl spirit just wandering around the outside of my house, looking for an opportunity to sneak in. That does not sit right with me. Our next two TikToks are by the user Amanda Stark 812. She shares with us 2 different ghost stories that I will introduce to you separately. In the first story, she tells us about 3 apparitions that would frequently visit her at night when she was a child and going through some health problems.
Here's the story of my very first paranormal experience. A little backstory that will make sense later on in my story. Back in 2001, I was around 7. They found out that I had some issues with my heart. I was going to have open heart surgery. Pretty serious. If I didn't have the surgery, I wasn't going to live. Not long before my surgery, I was seeing 3 people in my room every single night. I would go to my mom's room. I would say, hey, there's 3 people in my room. She would come to my room. She would check. Obviously, there was no one there. I'd go back to sleep. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and they would be there again. The best way I can describe how they looked was a shadow, but I could tell features. They weren't see-through. They were, fully black, I guess, like a shadow. I wasn't scared of them. There was what I called the cowboy. He was basically standing against like a wall with one foot up, kind of like the cowboy pose. He had a cowboy hat on, and I could tell he was smoking something because I could see smoke coming up. There was an older lady that was like sitting in what I can think of like a rocking chair. And then there was a little girl that just sat by my bed. And like I said, they never scared me. They were just there every single night. So I got used to it. So fast forward, I have my surgery. It was a little bit more complicated than what they thought it was going to be. They went in to fix one thing, and then they realized that there were other things that needed revised. So surgery went well. All was fine. After my recovery, I kept seeing them. I would go tell my mom, and she was very supportive. She never once said that I was making it up or, oh, that doesn't exist. She would just simply go in my room, turn on the light, see, there's nobody here, go back to bed. And that's just kind of how our life was for several years. So I don't remember seeing these spirits like after 2 years after my surgery. I just have no memory of ever seeing them again. But what's crazy is that my husband and I have a psychic friend that came into our life about a year ago. He's out of state, but we do some paranormal investigations, and that's kind of how we met him, through mutual friends. And he came to our house for a visit from Pennsylvania, and I just said, hey, I'd like you to do somewhat of a reading on me, if that's okay. So he agreed to do the reading, and the first thing he said was, you've had a near-death experience. And I looked at him and I said, well, I wouldn't call it a near-death experience, but he cut me off and he said, you had a major surgery. I'm trying not to really show any emotion so he's not feeding into it, because I'm not 100% that I believe, what he's telling me. So I just kind of said, yeah, I did have a surgery. And he said, you have guardian angels around you. I can see them behind you right now. And I said, oh, I do. I said, are they family members? He said, no, I don't think they're family members, but there's 3 of them. Y'all, the look on my face, I'm sure told them all. And he said, you've seen them. I said, yeah, a long time ago. It's been a long time since I've seen them. And I never really understood, they never talked. They literally just stood there and watched me. They were there when I was sleeping, and then I just quit seeing them. And he said, that's when you needed them the most. So I'm in shock. I'm like, wow, this is actually like validated. I didn't think I was crazy by any means, but just having a validation of somebody that knows nothing about you, telling you something that you have seen is just, it's just crazy. So I asked him, I said, are they still with me today? And he's like, yes, like I said earlier, they're still standing right behind you. They are with you through everything. And I literally get emotional talking about this because it's just, I don't know how to explain it other than just saying it's crazy. But that was the very first paranormal experience that I ever had. I've had several since then, but they have nothing to do with my guardian angels. I still have yet to see them and have no explanation for why they showed up at that time. But based on what the psychic said, I just think that they were there to protect me. I was very sick. I was having a major surgery at 7 years old, and I needed them to be by my side. And that's exactly what they did.
I think that this is so nice because typically when you think of like shadowy figures in a child's room at night, it's nothing good. Far from it, actually. I think normally you assume that they are there to scare them, which unfortunately in this case it did scare her, even though they were there for something good. But obviously your mind always goes to the negative, because why are there shadowy figures in a child's room at night? Like, that just can't be good. But I just think it is really heartwarming that even though they did actually accidentally scare her, that they were there watching over her and making sure she was safe. And I think it is really interesting. I do believe that psychics are real. With that being said, as much as I believe that there are psychics that are real, I think there are a lot of people who pretend to be psychics and are not. So I always find it very, very interesting when there's stories like this where a supposed psychic completely confirms something that there is no way they could have known, such as this. To me, that proves that they are authentic and that they can see or know things and have a special intuition that the rest of us do not. So I really, really enjoy this story and the fact that she later on in life got confirmation about these things that once freaked her out as a child, and learns that they were just there watching over her the whole time. But it makes me wonder who they were and why they were there. If the psychic said that they were not family members or like someone related to her, I wonder why specifically they chose her. Were they just friendly spirits in the house that she lived in and decided that they wanted to watch over her to, pass the time, or they had some special connection to her? I really don't know, and I would love to hear a follow-up if the person that she spoke to about this potentially had answers for that. I think that would be really interesting to know more. In the second TikTok, Amanda tells us about more experiences she had, but in a completely different period of her life and in a completely different setting. She was working as a nanny for a family in Louisiana, and she experienced multiple instances of paranormal activity in their home.
This is the story of my second paranormal experience. I posted a video of my first paranormal experience about 3 days ago, so if you go to my profile and scroll down a few videos, you'll be able to watch that as well. So this story started around 2013 or 2014. I was living in Louisiana at the time, and I had just recently gotten a job working as a nanny in a very small town. This family lived in an absolutely beautiful house. It reminded me of a plantation home, just very old school Louisiana. It was on a bunch of property, like overlooking like cattle farms. It was like a dream come true. The house was built around like 1902, I think the family said. It was very original. I started, my first week there was amazing. They had 2 small children under the age of 4, and everything was going really, really, really well. My second week there, it was a Wednesday, and I remember I was feeding their baby, and their toddler wanted to go upstairs and play. And I told her that I wouldn't be able to go upstairs with her and play until I was done feeding the baby, and to please find an activity to do until we could go do that. So a few minutes pass, I've kind of forgotten about it, and all of a sudden I hear her run up the stairs, and I can hear like above me in the hallway her running, and I'm like, oh gosh, I just told her not to do that. So I stand up with the baby, I go to the bottom of the stairs, and for the sake of anonymity, I'm not going to say her name, we'll just call her Josie. So I yelled up the stairs and I said, Josie, please come down here. I waited, and then I hear her say, I'm right here. And she's standing behind me. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe it was just the wind, you know, maybe it was just something else. But in my mind, I knew that this was a paranormal experience. So I said, let's just go outside and play the rest of the afternoon. So that's exactly what we did. We got the kids and we went outside. So fast forward exactly a week, the next Wednesday, I'm sitting in the living room and I could see a hallway, but it was, you know, a door because it's an old house. And in the hallway, something kept like catching my eye, and the sun wasn't going down. Like there weren't cars running, like going by. This was a very like rural area. And I finally like look over, and there is a black mist just like going across the wall, and it went into a cabinet. And at the exact same moment that I saw this shadow, I heard a growl. This family did have a dog. They had a very big Great Dane, but the Great Dane was sitting right beside me. I immediately got a horrible feeling like in my chest, in the pit of my stomach. I knew that it was something negative. Got the kids, went outside. So after 2 experiences, I thought I should probably tell the family, you know, what's going on. But part of me didn't, because I was new in the area and I didn't want the family to not like me or not want me to work with their children if I was bringing up something paranormal. One day in conversation, I asked the mom, I said, has anything ever strange happened in this house to you? And she said, why do you ask? And I said, oh, I'm just curious. You know, it's an old house, like things happen. Have you had anything happen? And she's like, actually, matter of fact, I have. She said a lot of times she'll wake up in the middle of the night to go take care of the baby, get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, whatever, and the front door and the back door would be wide open. Now, I'm not going to say exactly what her husband did for a living, but it was the type of job where like he did not leave doors open. Like he was very cautious about things. He was a protector of the family. So she said that she just thought it was kind of strange, like maybe the wind blew them open, and kind of just put it to the side. She also said that they would hear like footsteps above, exactly where I heard the footsteps. So I came clean to her and I said, listen, I said, this is going to sound crazy, but this is what's been happening to me. She believed me. She was very nice about it. Thank goodness. Like I didn't lose my job. But she did say that they had never experienced anything negative. So the fact that I said that like I had felt it was negative, I think it was like maybe not concerning to her, but I don't know if she fully believed that I could feel that was like a negative entity. So anyways, we just kind of like pushed it off to the side. And my last experience that ever happened in the house, which I think is the most interesting. So my mom asked me if I could send her a picture of the house. I had raved about how beautiful it was and how happy I was at this new job. So she said, take a picture of the house and send it to me. So I'm sitting in my car waiting to leave to go get my child from school. And I just like snap a quick picture of the house, put my phone away, drive, go get my son, come back. A few hours later, my mom texted me and said, oh my goodness, that is so beautiful. Who was in the house with you? And I said, nobody was in the house. I left with the kids and nobody was in the house. And she said, who's standing in the window? I said, what are you talking about? So I open up my phone and I zoom in on all the windows. I zoom in on the top level, I zoom in on the main level, and as I get to the last window on the right-hand side of the house, there is a full figure standing in the window. It didn't have like features, it was just like kind of a shadow. I don't know who this person was. I don't know why they were there. I wish I still had the picture, and if I can find it, I will share it with you. I mean, this was a very long time ago, so I've had several phones since then. Actually working as a dental assistant, or working towards my dental assistant credential at the time, and so this kind of was like a short-term job. They knew that. So I didn't quit because of the paranormal experiences, but if I had not had that other job lined up, I truly don't think I would have made it.
What I find interesting about this one is the different perspectives on, I guess, the vibe of the spirits. The mom said that she didn't really think too much of it and that it didn't really feel negative or anything, whereas Amanda kind of felt differently about that. And it makes me wonder if they had encountered different spirits, or if for whatever reason the spirit was acting differently between the two of them. Or, you know, there's also the scenario that the mom just kind of like brushed it off and like didn't give much energy to it and didn't see its true intentions if it was negative. Or, you know, Amanda could have just been extra freaked out and thought it was negative. You really don't know, but I think it is really interesting that they have like two different kind of perceptions of the activity that's happening. Whereas I feel like when people normally are like, oh yeah, I've experienced that too, they can be kind of on the same page of whether they feel it's good or evil or not. But in this instance, obviously it wasn't. I also really, really love how she says that she took the picture of the house and sent it to her mom, and her mom's sitting in the window. I feel like that is a very stereotypical ghost story, but I just love that. Like, I cannot get enough when people like take a picture and there's something hidden in the window or something like that. Actually, nothing actually happened, but it is funny now that I'm saying this. A few days ago, my friend and I went to go see the American Horror Story house in Los Angeles. If you've seen the show, I'm sure you know about the house. It is here. It is the one that season 1 Murder House is based on. It is stunning in person. I was like in awe as I pulled up. I like could not believe that I was actually looking at it. But as we are walking up to the front of the house to take pictures, this car drives by and he rolls down the window and he's like, do you see the lady in the window? And we were like, what? And then he said he was just kidding. But I feel like it's just such a common thing that's like, oh my God, the person in the window, do you see that in the picture or something like that? But I love that. I don't know why. It's just, I feel like it's kind of cheesy and it happens so often, but I really cannot get enough of that kind of stuff. She did not share the photo, so I'm assuming she did not find it, which is a kind of a bummer because I would have loved to have seen it. But regardless, I think it is such an interesting story. And I love that she shares two that are both very different and experiences she's had from different points of her life as well. Our next two TikToks are by the user HBPVO. This user's name is Hunter, and you might remember me sharing a couple of his TikToks in a previous video. In that one, he talked about coming across a flesh pedestrian, is what I'm going to call them, because saying the real word really, really creeps me out. So I'm just going to call him that. Seeing a flesh pedestrian in his hometown near a dilapidated treehouse. In these two TikToks I'm going to show you in this video, he shares a story about coming across a flesh pedestrian while working in the Mojave Desert shooting a film.
Good morning, it's 9 a.m. This is a fast story, but this is the story of how when I was on set in the Mojave Desert, I think I may have seen another flesh pedestrian. I'm gaffing on this movie called Drifter, and first set of shooting this film is out in the middle of nowhere, like literal middle of desert. It's a post-apocalyptic film. And when we get there and we set up where we're going to shoot, there is unfortunately the corpse of a deceased dog. And, you know, everyone says like, hey, calling this out, there's a dead dog, you know, unfortunately, please avoid that. You know, there were flies and everything. And so we get to shooting and we're doing nights. So it's basically 5 days straight of just shooting nights. I don't know what it was. It was either delirium. I go to get another light and the dog's corpse is by the truck. But I distinctly remember the corpse being by the road. And so I'm like, okay, that's weird. And it's like decently close to truck. Truck's here, corpse is here. I'm like, okay. So I don't think too much about it, but I call it out saying like, hey guys, just be mindful. The body is somewhere over there. And everyone's like, yep, cool, got it. It's now about like 3:30 in the morning. We're getting to the last couple shots and I go to change another light on the other side of the set. We're shooting on a dirt road. Car is here, there's a light here, truck's over here. So keep in mind, body was there. I gotta move this light where the car is. The body is now suddenly near this light. The body has moved. I know with every fiber in my being that body moved. And so the weirdest part about all of this, I know in my past stories I've talked about the orange eyes, and I talked about what I saw. There have always been rumors in Mojave about packs of dogs. And when I looked out in the distance after, God damn it, after I saw the corpse near the light, there were like this row of eyes. It was as if there was like 4 or 5 of them, and they were just watching from a far distance. There's a couple of other weird stories from that set, but I have to get to work. So, have a good day. Oh, that one was really weird. Good morning, it's 6 a.m. This is part 2 of the other flesh pedestrian story. After finishing the first night of shooting on Drifter, we all go to a hotel, come back next afternoon, night 2. The dog's corpse is gone. We called it in, animal control, I guess, came, got rid of it. And so it's like, okay, cool. It's no longer here. Awesome. We just get to shooting immediately. You know, we still have a lot to get done. And we're all on walkies because it's pretty spread out where we are. For a reminder, road, truck, base camp, where we're shooting, big light. And around about 1 in the morning, I'm starting to get a lot of static. And I'm thinking like I have a battery issue, something's wrong with my walkie-talkie. So I go back to the truck, and there was a PA there. And I was like, hey, can I get a new battery? And they're like, yeah. Switch out the battery. I still have static. I'm like, I take apart the radio. I'm like trying to figure it out. But I'm like, okay, I just need a new radio. Take my radio. They have a backup, thankfully. It was an indie film, so like we only had a handful of them. And go back to what I was doing, and then about 30 minutes later, static starts again. And this time it's louder. Like, static is loud. And I swear to God, I heard, as I get goosebumps again, I heard something in the static, and it sounded like whispers. It sounded like another voice. And I go to another channel, and I just tell my team, hey guys, we're not going to use channel 3 anymore. Let's use channel 4. Because we had channel 4 open. And they're like, yep, cool. And suddenly the entire team starts hearing other voices on all of the channels. Channel 1, channel 2, channel 4, channel 6. Like, and we think, is there like another production in the area? Is there other people? There's not. Like, where we are, there should be no reason why our radios are getting interference from someone else. And so it's like, it is intermittent, but like voices will like randomly cut through. Everyone's radios are getting like weird interference. And so right when like we decide to break for food, and I start just fiddling around with the radio, and I like crank the volume up as much as I can. And I swear to God, I heard Hunter. And I like look around and like look left. There was the dog. It was just a dog that was just slightly off on the edge of the light. It was just standing there. It wasn't trying to approach me, but it was just standing there. And I was like, hey dog, how you doing? And I love dogs, but this dog was just staring at me with the most blank stare. And I like kind of walk forward a little more to get like a better view, and it had the same color of fur as the body. I swear to God. And they were feral dogs, you know, and they were all some shade of tan. This dog looked like its skin was pulled taut in areas. It could have easily been emaciated. It could have easily been, you know, hungry, and it smelled the food. But there was something wrong with its fur. There was something wrong with how its skin was pulled against its frame. And when I got a little closer, every fiber in my being said, no. So I went back, and I like walked backwards. I didn't turn my back to this dog. And I like walked backwards, and the dog was still there. The dog did not move. And I'm just like, okay, just a dog. And then I even called it out to the rest of the team. Hey guys, I think there's a couple dogs around. You know, they're probably attracted to the smell of the food. Don't give them anything. We don't want to have a situation we can't control. It's now about 3 a.m. We're running behind, and I decide I'm taking 5. I'm closing my eyes in the crew van, and I hear this scratching sound on the door of the van. And I look, and it's the same dog, and it's on its hind legs scratching at the door. And I just like rolled down the window, and I was just trying to get it to go away. And like the way that it looked at me, you know how sometimes when you see a dog and you're like, you have a little human soul in you. This thing didn't have a soul. This thing had a void. Like, this thing looked at me with the most blank, hollow expression. I wish there was a way to like better tie up this story, because after this it got scared, or it just decided to wander off, and that was sort of the end of this specific happenstance in the Mojave Desert, which to this day I can't explain it. But there were a couple of other things. Mojave, just like Duluth, is a very ancient land. It has a lot of secrets. It has a lot of power. And there are things out there we can't explain. Have a good day.
One thing I just really don't like about this is how the body was moving. To begin with, I think it is incredibly upsetting that there is just a body sitting there. Obviously, I know things happen out in the wild, but it absolutely breaks my heart when I hear about any kind of animal death or anything like that. I feel like they're just so innocent and sweet. It like hurts my soul every time. So, you know, it's nature and things happen, but that itself kind of just breaks my heart to begin with. But the fact that then the body is moving around the set is really weird and uncomfortable, because it's like, obviously you know where the body is if you feel that you need to avoid it because it upsets you, like you know where not to go. But it seems to be moving around so that you potentially can't avoid it. You know, if he noticed that it was by the truck or the trailer, and then all of a sudden it's by these lights instead, like, how does that happen? It sounds like from these videos that he is, you know, kind of in charge of things. So you'd think he'd know if, you know, trailers are being moved around and lights are being moved around that dramatically. So I don't think that that is what's happening. I think that somehow this body is being moved. And then for him to come back another day and see supposedly what appears to be the same dog, but something is just not right. Like, it's like a flesh pedestrian is using its body to trick him. You know, trick him into giving it attention or petting it or engaging it with it in any form. And I feel like, to me, there's something creepy about being in the desert in the middle of the night. Like, you know, outside all of the studio lights, it's just darkness. Like, you never know what kind of creatures are out there, whether they're known creatures or unknown creatures. I feel like there is so much lore from like the desert and stuff like that it would for sure freak me out to be out there. And then to have an encounter with something that is just so unsettling to you, I would not enjoy that. So I'm glad that nothing terrible happened from this, but it is pretty unsettling to say the least. Our next two TikToks are with user Gina Torrance. These two TikToks I'm going to show you are from separate occasions and separate paranormal experiences. Gina lives in a haunted house, and amongst other content that she creates, she does share her stories in this haunted house. In the first TikTok I'm going to show you, she tells us about something incredibly creepy that happens one night as she is getting ready to go to bed.
Probably the creepiest thing ever since bringing our daughter home has happened in our haunted house, and obviously I'm going to share it with you. I just woke up, so I'm still getting my mind together, but this really freaked us out. So lately my husband has been kind of taking like the bedtime shift. So I take a shower, I do my thing while my husband tries to put our daughter to sleep. So he finally got her down, was laying her in her bassinet in our room. I was in our room, like watching TV, kind of starting to fall asleep, and he was in here in the kitchen washing bottles and getting some ready because we keep them in our bedroom. So when she needs a feed in the night, we just make everything right in our bedroom and feed her there. So he was out here prepping the bottles, doing what he has to do. All of a sudden, I hear this crash, boom, crash, whatever you want to call it. And he like runs down the hallway to our bedroom and he was like, "You are never going to guess what just happened." And I was like, "What?" So we have like cases of water bottles because that's what we use to make her bottles and for the sterilizer and everything. So we have them like stacked up by our side door. They've been stacked up. Okay, we've had them for at least 10 days now. Nobody's been touching them because we're currently using a case that we bring into the kitchen. So they are stacked up, they are even, they are level. You get where I'm going with this. One falls over. Okay, so obviously it makes this crash sound. And he was like, nothing should have made that fall over. Like, nobody touched it. It was weird. It's not uneven. That's weird, right? I was like, yeah, that's pretty weird. So whatever. He goes on, he comes back into the kitchen, he puts the water bottles back on top, like he stacks them back up where they were, whatever, and comes into the bedroom. The baby's awake now, she wants to eat. It's like this big ordeal. So eventually, an hour later, the baby is asleep, we're both in bed. My husband's passed out and I can't sleep because I'm kind of like freaked out. And I hear, like, you know, the plastic on the water bottle cases, and like when you pick it up and when you touch it, it makes like a crinkle sound. I hear that and it's like crinkling and like crinkle, crinkle, all that like crinkling noise. And I was like, okay, it's just my cats like biting on it or playing with it or running around it, whatever. And I'm kind of starting to get comfortable in bed. I still can't get comfortable because I'm still hearing the crinkling. So I sit up to get a drink of water and both of my cats are with us in bed. So I'm like, okay, I don't like this at all. So then I can't sleep because there's no reason that that should be happening. And like, the water bottles are right by my basement, and the basement is like the creepiest part of my house. If you've been following me, you know that the previous owner passed away here. Lots of messed up, weird stuff happens. I don't know, it's just really creepy to me. Maybe it doesn't sound as creepy when I'm telling the story, but like, I didn't sleep last night because for whatever reason, I just felt like I was constantly being watched after that. And every time I woke up, I just felt like someone was gonna be like standing there.
I feel like a lot of the time I can come up with rational explanations for things and say, oh, well, this could have happened or this could have happened. But I don't know how a case of water bottles just like falls over. I mean, even if you have multiple stacked on top of each other, unless, like she said, which she confirmed that they're not doing, unless you are like taking out water bottles so like it shifts, they're pretty sturdy. Like, those things are heavy, and when they're stacked, they're just like, they're not going anywhere unless you're like pushing them around. And because they're so wide, it kind of balances out the height of the water bottles. It's not easy to just tip them over. So I don't really know how that would happen. Like, I personally have no explanation for that. I think it would take quite a bit of effort to like push over a stack of water bottles, which at first she said she thought maybe her cats were playing with it, which was making the noise the second time around, but later discovered that her cats were with her the whole time. Even if it was the cats, I don't see a cat being strong enough to completely knock over a case of water bottles. In the second TikTok I'm going to show you, she tells us about a creepy antique that she got from her grandmother as a present for their nursery. And she tells us that it has been causing activity in her house to ramp up.
My house is haunted, so of course weird stuff happens. And now that we have a baby and we have brought her home, we are just getting in the groove of life. Of course, creepy stuff starts happening in her nursery. So to make the nursery creepier, look at what I have. So my grandma bought this at like an antique resale shop, and she was so excited, and she called me and she's like, I have the cutest addition to Gia's nursery. It's something that you can't find anymore. I'm so excited to show it to you. So she comes over and she brings this. Now, the meaning behind it is very sweet, and I am keeping it, but it's creepy looking. And ever since we've had it, which has been the past like few days, I've noticed, and my husband has noticed, the activity, the paranormal activity in our home, like definitely ramping up. In my last video with like the knocking that you can hear in the middle of the night, That was the first night that we had this. So this is the item in question. My grandma found this at an antique resale shop. Like I said, it is a porcelain glass piggy bank, as you can see. And there's no like date on it or anything, because to me it looks pretty old, like the style of the painting and just the idea of like a literal pig as a piggy bank in general, because I feel like you don't see those anymore. But it's creepy, and ever since my grandma has brought it to our home, more weird stuff has been happening.
I honestly think the pig's kind of cute, but you never know what you're going to be bringing to your house or what is attached to items when you get things from the thrift store or antiques or whatnot. And I say that as someone who loves to thrift. But that is kind of a risk that you are taking by buying goods from other people. It obviously has someone else's energy attached to it. Worst case, someone used it for, some kind of ritual or something, which is highly unlikely. But again, worst case, most common thing is there's just energy attached to it from being in a home for quite a while, or maybe there was a lot of negative energy, or not even from the people necessarily, but like from the land itself. You never know. So when you are bringing in other people's possessions into your house, it is usually best to cleanse it. And I say that as someone who does not do that. I know it is probably best to, but I just sometimes cannot be bothered. So to me, it would make sense why there's a possibility that the activity has ramped up since bringing this thing into her house that also she deems as creepy. So it probably kind of gives it power to, make things creepier in her house because she's like giving it that energy. I mean, honestly, everything in life is all about energies and the power you give to things. But yeah, I find it really interesting that they've been experiencing this from this gift they got. Our next TikTok is by the user Ramona's Ramblings. She tells us a story about a time she came across a ghost cowboy while she was in the downtown of her city. She didn't realize it at the time that he was a ghost cowboy, but she explains that he just randomly disappeared. And later on a ghost tour, she finds out who he really was.
It is October 1st, which means it is the official start of spooky season. And I wanted to start off one of my favorite times of year with a week of personal ghost stories. I think they're always so fun to share and like talked about with other people. And I want to start off with one of my favorite stories. I also apologize for the AC cranking. It's currently 91 degrees where I am, so it's a little bit warm. But this story took place a little bit over a decade ago, so a little over 10 years ago. And it took place in the city I'm currently living in. This happened when we had come down to just kind of check things out a little bit. And we're walking around the downtown area. And as we're walking, I see this really tall man with like a good beard on him, good mustache, dressed up like a cowboy. Clear as day, just as clear to me as everyone else that was walking past us on the street. And he's coming towards us as we're walking towards him, so we're gonna cross paths. And I'm watching him. Like I said, he's tall, he's got the coolest costume on. I'm just like, man, he went all out on this like old school cowboy costume. But like no one else on the street was looking at this man. So I'm just like, all right, well, that's weird. And I watched him go past me. And I turned to the person that I'm with and I'm like, man, did you see that guy's costume back there? Like, it was so cool. And he's just like, what are you talking about? And we turn and he's gone. I had completely assumed that he maybe ducked into one of the nearby bars, a nearby hotel, alleyway, something. Because like where we were, there were a lot of older hotels. And I was just like, okay, he must have popped in somewhere, probably a character actor of some sort. So we continue on our way, didn't think anything else of it. Fast forward about, I would say 8-9 months, we've officially moved out here, and we decided to go on like a fun ghost tour to get some history of the area, and it's just fun. And as we're on this tour, we get into one of the older hotels that was right next to that spot I had been in when I had seen this man. And we're all just checking out the hotel, wandering around, and our guide is telling the stories of the specters that are most commonly seen there, interactions people have, and she starts talking about this one apparition that a few people will see as clear as day. It was this well-known cowboy at the time, and for the life of me, I can't remember his name. I apologize. If I figure it out, I will pop in a comment or edit the caption with the name in it. but she starts talking about him, and it is the exact same person I saw. And she's like, yeah, he's really tall, mustache, beard, full cowboy garb, and you'll see him, and then he disappears into his favorite bar, which is attached to this hotel. And I'm just kind of sitting there like, oh, that's what that was. And like trying not to believe it myself and talk myself out of it, because at that time I was still very much like, oh, this isn't real. There's explanations for everything, even though like deep down I knew what it was. Like I knew exactly what I had seen, and I didn't tell anyone else. I didn't talk about this honestly for so many years because I didn't think anyone else would believe me. But that's my first ghost story. I wanted to keep it under 5 minutes, so I wanted to give a really quick like synopsis on it, and yeah, stay tuned for more.
I honestly love everything about this story, from the fact that she's like so amazed by this old-timey cowboy guy walking down the street, and then she kind of just moves on, and then later realizes that she saw the thing that a lot of people see. I definitely said this before, but I love when it's like people see something and then later on they get confirmation that they saw something paranormal from a completely outside source that had no idea that they had actually seen it. I just love those like mind-blowing, oh my god, I can't believe I actually saw that moments, and it is just so cool to me that she saw like one of her town's historical, well-known ghosts. The next 6 videos are by the user Jordan Ashley, and she tells us about the period in her life where she was constantly followed around by a goblin.
In honor of spooky season, I'm going to tell you about the time I was followed by a goblin. I always feel like a lunatic when I tell this story, and believe me, if I was hearing it for the first time, I'd be like, Jordan, you're a weirdo. It did happen. But it felt real to me, and I think it's quite funny. Now, at least I can laugh about it. But it started 3 years ago, in October, a couple of weeks before Halloween. I went on a lovely, relaxing, until this happened, all-girls spa weekend. There was 5 of us. We stayed at a spa that has a little bit of history. It's an old mill, so beautiful, big, ornate building. And fun fact, though I don't think this is relevant to it, some people think that it could be related, is that my maiden surname is a bit obscure and unusual, I guess. I've never heard of anyone other than my family having this name, and the name of the town that it was in is the same name as my maiden surname, so whatever. Maybe it's relevant, maybe it's not. We stayed at this spa and we stayed overnight, and I was having quite a bad night's sleep because the bed was quite uncomfy. I was on a sofa bed in the lounge and somebody else was with me but on a separate sofa bed. I decided to get up at about 5 a.m. and then I was just kind of like awake, just staring into the room. And about 5:30, 5:45, I thought, I'm probably going to get up, get dressed and go down to see if the pool's open to use the facilities, because the point is I'm fully awake. That's what I'm trying to say. Went downstairs, spa facilities closed, everywhere's locked, can't really leave the building. I can only go back up to the room. Of course, everybody's asleep. I creep back in, I lay back down on the sofa bed and I just decide to scroll. The sun, I think, is just about to come up, so the room's quite hazy, still dark, I can see outlines. So I'm laying on the sofa, my head is popped up on the armrest, and I'm just like, as I am now, with my arm on my phone, just scrolling, doom scrolling on TikTok. I started to feel like something tickle my arm as it's up. And it happened one too many times that I thought, it's not my hair, it's not an itch, it must be a spider, it must be a bug. So be that the worst fear ever. If you ever had a spider in your hair, you know it's the worst thing ever to happen. Quickly sat up, looked back, expected to see something there. Instead, I saw behind the back of the sofa, like appearing over me or to me, I don't know, was what looked like the top of a head, like this. I couldn't see any eyes, I just saw the shape. Now, I thought, oh, is that me? Is it a reflection? Is there a mirror behind here? Is it a shadow? Just, it scared me straight away. Like I could feel like my heart going. But I was thinking all the things like it could be. It felt like I was staring at something for ages. It must have been moments. But I felt like I was there for a very long time staring at this thing. After a while, I was like, probably just me. But I kept my eyes fixed on it and laid back down. And as I laid back down, this thing appeared to like appear over me. So it was like this, and then it went like that. I was still like, what could this be? Like swallowing my heart, dun 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 dun, beating, you know. And I decided to lean closer to it, and that's when the first thing I made out was its mouth. Its mouth was like half the size of its face, and it was just had awful janky teeth. Skin was very pale, kind of had like a sheen to it, like a silvery grey, perhaps like white shiny colour. Didn't really make out any eyes, but like hollow black sockets, kind of. Not very descriptive of that vision. It was just a space that was there, and the hair was like individual strands of black hair. It looked like Gollum. That's what this thing looked like to me. And I shouted very loudly, "What the fuck is that?" Waking up people in the apartment. So once the light was turned on and I woke everyone up, I immediately felt like an absolute weirdo because nothing was there, and I so quickly dumbed it down. "Oh, I must have been having a nightmare. I'm so sorry." And it became the talk of the weekend. We had an amazing relaxing spa trip until Jordan woke up screaming at 6 a.m, waking us all up saying that she thought she saw something. You know, I like laughed it off, like, yeah, I'm sorry guys, whatever. When I was with my partner, I said to him, I really thought I saw something. And he doesn't believe in anything. He could actually have a ghost walk up to him and be like, nah, that was my brain that did that. He's convinced himself that I had fallen back asleep and I'd seen something that way. But I had got up, I'd got dressed, I'd left the apartment, and then I came back up. I was awake. This happened. Although it didn't stop there. For weeks after, I thought I was being followed by something, again, that I can describe as a small goblin, like below knee height. I kept on seeing things like run past, and it doesn't matter where I was, like on a dog walk, like at home, going to work, anywhere. I'd always feel like there was something like small, like around me. At first I thought it was like cats because it was like below knee height. And then things started to like knock over and topple over, and I was losing things, and I was honestly thought I was going crazy. Like, honestly, I was like, I'm seeing things are moving, I'm losing things and disappearing, I am going crazy. Like, honestly, experiencing anything like this, terrifying, because you're thinking, I'm doing this to myself. No, nothing. Of course a goblin isn't real. Of course it's not. Why is my brain doing this to me? That's what I felt like. And how do you tell people this? I tried to explain it to my mum, being like, I think I'm being followed by a goblin, and they just laugh it off. The second time, and the only other time I ever saw something like physical, I could make things out, was we've got quite an open garden, and it must have been about 4 weeks later, maybe 3 weeks, and I'd let my dog out for a wee before bed, and we have a peanut table at the bottom of the garden. The peanuts were being thrown at us, and I thought, and my dog was like growling and going mad, and I thought, who is there, a kid back there? And I looked in the direction, and I knew by the colour of its skin, it was that shiny grey white colour, and it looked like a really hench baby arm. It was grabbing peanuts and throwing them at us. If I was in America, I'd be like, yeah, that was a raccoon, but I live in West Yorkshire, you know, squirrels don't have arm masses like that. I knew whatever it was the same thing that I saw at the spa, and I ran inside and I took my dog inside, and I was like, no, I'm going to bed. I ain't dealing with this. There was a time when I was working and the door knocked, and I went downstairs. By the time I came upstairs, everything was unplugged. Again, the part of me that was thinking, I'm doing this to myself, I was like, did I unplug it? Did I do that? Why don't I remember it? Honestly thinking like, do I have a black spot on the brain? Am I having an aneurysm? Am I doing things I don't know? And there was a time I was in the bath and I was like on my phone, and I thought I saw my dog enter the bathroom, because I just saw like this dark like figure, like, but below knee height, like come into the bathroom, and I'm talking to her thinking it's my dog, and I look over and nothing's there, and I was like, this is awful. Whatever it was it wanted me to know it was there. It wasn't necessarily like harmful, but it was like naughty and mischievous. Like imagine like a 2-year-old following you around constantly, just doing things to annoy you. It was like that. So I think it must have been around, I don't know if it was before or after Christmas, I can't remember, but we're in this old bookshop and my partner's like shopping for his stupid secondhand sci-fi books. And there's like a witch shop opposite, and I'm like, I felt like Bella from Twilight, you know, when she's like doing all the research and she's like the cold one. I felt like that in my head, thinking, do I just go in there and just say something? I didn't have to say anything. As soon as I walked in there, moments after, this woman, I don't believe even worked in there, she just said, like approached me and she was like, I don't mean to alarm you. She was like really nice and kind, and she actually looked like me, which was weird. She was like, you've got something called a low vibrational spiritual entity attached to you, and you need to get rid of it. You need to stop talking about it because it feeds it. You need to do a ritual. You light a white candle, can be anyone. You can buy one from here. You can go to Sainsbury's and buy a tea candle. You can use one you've already got. You light it, you tell this thing to leave. You open the window and your doors, and then you'll know when it happens. You'll feel a relief and you don't talk about it again. I didn't do it for a couple of weeks because I felt like an absolute weirdo, but it was in the back of my head. I went home, I did this ritual, I shut my dog out, and she was right. I felt a relief. It was like my head naturally felt like lifted and like I deflated, and I didn't hear anything. I have filmed this video before last year, and in the video you can hear tapping and little scuffles about in it. I'm pleased to tell you nothing has happened since then, so I can happily talk about this situation now. But that was the time I was followed by a goblin.
I would probably have a heart attack out of fear if I'm in a place I'm not familiar with and I just see like a goblin creature staring at me in the early hours of the morning. I think, you know, a ghost is one thing, but a goblin? Like, it makes sense, you know, that you might experience some paranormal activity. It's like, oh, okay, you know, this happens to people. But you roll over and you're face to face with a goblin? Like, that is not something I'd expect. But then after that, it seems like it's not trying to do her harm. Like she said, it's just kind of mischievous. I guess that's supposed to be like a good thing, but at the same time, I'd still be concerned and a little bit freaked out, you know? I still would be unsettled by it following me around, but I guess it's good that it's not trying to harm me. Like, you know, seeing it in your back garden, throwing things at you. It's crazy. I think it's really interesting that she, like, you know, walked into a spiritual store then, and then someone immediately got like a vibe from her and said, you know, you need to get rid of this and here's how you do it. And that when she did it, it actually worked. Although when she talked about it again, she experienced it again. Which then does make me concerned for her that she's sharing this with us, which, I mean, I love to hear about anything, but it makes me concerned that she's sharing this and now it's giving it attention again and it might come back. In the next TikTok, I'm going to show you very quickly. She shows us an AI generated image that she created specifically to show us what this creature looked like.
I have no artistic skill whatsoever, but I put some prompts into AI and I've pretty much nailed what it looks like. It's kind of gross, so prepare yourself. It's not exact, but it's as close as I could get it. It had some single strands of hair on its head. It was a lot smaller, imagine like a child-sized head, and the ears weren't quite like that. They were like much closer, but still kind of a little bit pointed. That's why I said it looks like a goblin. Sleep well.
I think somehow that image made me more scared. I was picturing kind of like one of the goblins from Gringotts in Harry Potter, or like that like stringy haired guy from I think the Lord of the Rings movies. I've never seen them, but like that guy. I was picturing something like that, which felt more like again mischievous, even though it's still scary. But for some reason, like her thing to me is like demonic looking almost. And like that really scares me. I would be more freaked out if I saw that thing than like a Gringotts goblin. But in the next video, she tells us that she finds out that she's not the first person in her family to be talking with some kind of goblin-like creature.
I have a goblin update for you, and it turns out that I'm not the first person in my family to see or experience anything like this. So many years ago, my great aunts lived in a house that has its own stories and experiences from people in my family saying they experienced weird stuff. But she was married to a guy that inherited some tropical fish. Where's this story going? So one of his friends was leaving the UK and he had tropical fish that he obviously couldn't take with him. So my auntie and her husband took on these tropical fish, but they were told that they won't have a long lifespan because they're already like 7 years old, and apparently these fish lived between like 5 to 10 years, something like that. So my auntie used to wake up in the middle of the night to her husband sat at the end of the bed talking to something that she couldn't see. It turns out her husband thought he was talking to a little leprechaun. That's what he said. Something that looked like a little leprechaun was telling him how to look after these fish and keep them alive. Well, they were together for about 30 years, and when he left, he took the fish with him. Those fish lived for an additional 15 years, and they shouldn't have had that long lifespan. So if little goblins or leprechauns or whatever they are, like my family, as long as they're good and do something useful, then I don't mind. Like, I'm not being followed anymore. I'm not worried about anything bothering me. I'm not scared. Lots of people are DMing me and messaging me, offering to do like free cleanses and rituals and telling me not to speak about this thing because the lady I saw in the witch shop told me never to speak about this thing again. Nothing's affecting me. I've moved county, I've moved house, and this house, my house, is over 100 years old. She has seen 2 wars. We're only the 3rd owners. Nothing's coming through these walls. Nothing. She's got a lot of history and she's got a lot of protection. Nothing unwelcome is coming through these walls. So her name is Pearl. We talk to Pearl. We tell her when she's having a new renovation. We tell her to protect us, and she is. No little goblins, little gobbos are coming in these walls. Not happening. I'm safe.
I think it's interesting that he kind of described it as a leprechaun type thing. I think it's so hilarious. We're talking about like goblins and leprechauns. Like, I don't know. I love it. It's so on brand, but it's hilarious. And I think it's so interesting that it's like giving him advice on how to help the fish. But to me, it sounds like to me that he isn't like a blood related family member, that it's like her aunt's, her blood related relative, and he married her. So I guess that wouldn't be like necessarily like, I don't know, if it were, I'm trying to think of the proper words, like, you know, like not like a familial curse, because it's not a curse, but like some like lineage thing. Obviously that wouldn't include him because he married into the family, but I do think it is interesting that it seems like there's kind of this energy around the family where they can see things like this or connect with things. So that is pretty interesting to me. She then goes on to update us that she has a run-in with what she believes is Goblin again, knocking and trying to open her front door.
I'm too scared to move right now. I'm in my kitchen doing my pots, and it sounds like somebody has opened the front door and walked in. I'm by myself this weekend. My partner works like 2 hours away, and I've quickly turned around, and here's my view. The front door is straight in front of me. I've turned around to see what's at the door, and no one's there. So I just kind of stood there looking at it, and the handle just fucking shook in front of me. I've got CCTV, so I'm going to put in the footage if there's anything, but I'm going to have a look, because it could just be a delivery man just pissing me about, but I'm honestly too scared to go and have a look. I've just looked at my CCTV and there was no one there, which is great that I haven't got anybody, you know, pranking me. However, I'm not doing this again. I'm not doing it again. I'm not doing it again. It did this, like that. It's locked. That. If anyone stood there, I can see. I don't want to add any fuel to the fire or come across as ingenuine or whatever, but I'm going to stop talking about this goblin now because I didn't make that up and I don't want anything to happen again because it's genuinely terrifying. When I made the video the other day, I was really scared because I actually thought somebody was trying to come into my house. It sounded like somebody opened the door, entered the house, and then when I saw the handle move, I was genuinely scared that I was going to get burgled or some weirdo is going to come into the house, which is more scary than any weird things happening. When I checked the CCTV, I was immediately relaxed. Okay, again, it's probably coincidence at the time when I'm talking about this goblin that I saw or whatever it was 3 years ago. I'm also now living in a really old house. My house is over 100 years old. I've got open chimney flutes. It's been windy. It could have been that. Who knows? Who knows? It could have been a lorry driving by the house and it caused the vibration to shake the door. Who knows? I'm open to all suggestions. I do think that this fear lives in my head, and since I've been talking about whatever I saw at the spa 3 years ago a lot more than I ever have done, it's manifesting. You know, I'm making my fear come to life with any noise that I hear, any sort of movement, any sort of bang, me being on my own. I'm bringing it to life. That's why I said I've not stopped talking about it. It's not because I believe that it's going to come back. I believe that I'm doing it to myself. Yeah.
Honestly, that is kind of what I was saying that I was afraid of after the first TikTok, is that she's giving energy to this thing again and it's going to show up. Whether or not that was actually what it is, because obviously you can't see anything on the security camera. Like, it wasn't a person, but also it's not like you could see a goblin. Who knows the logistics of that? If, you know, maybe goblins don't show up on cameras, like how vampires can't see themselves in the mirror. The world may never know. But obviously you can't see anything there. So it is very interesting that she's experiencing like the handle shaking and hearing something when there is quite literally nothing there. To me, that leads to more ghosts than goblin, again, unless goblins can't be caught on security footage for whatever reason. I sound crazy saying that, but that's the topic at hand. So to me, it's like I wonder if maybe she opened herself up to something else because she is discussing the goblin. Maybe it isn't the goblin that returned. Maybe it is something else more traditionally paranormal, such as ghost. The final TikTok I am going to show you from her. She shares with us the details of a run-in with an interesting, seemingly psychic woman she has on the street.
I don't know what's going on in my life right now, but I can't make it up. I can't make it up. Something's happening and I don't know what. It needs to fucking stop. I'm in the churchyard. My dog's chasing the squirrels. There's fucking loads of squirrels there. It's not unusual for us to be there. It's not unusual to have conversations with people in there. I'm living in a small market town. Loads of old people. They always talk about my dog. She's a cute dog. So this lady's walking up the path and she's shouting like, oh, is she chasing the squirrels? The doggies love the squirrels in here. I usually feed them, but I've left them on my kitchen table. And she stops about 2 feet away and she goes, oh, there's an angel behind you. And I was like, oh, okay then. She was an Irish lady. I've come across Irish Catholics before. They always say, like, do you believe in God? I'm in a churchyard. It's not unusual. What was unusual was when she said, she's telling me there's lots of J's in your life. She says, I'm getting Jade, Jack, Jess. There's lots of people beginning with J in your life. My mum, me and my siblings, our pets, family pets, we all begin with J, and we said that we want to carry on that. I'm Jordan, my brother's Jack, my sister Jasmine, my mum's Jo, dog's Jess. And I was just like, okay. And she kept on saying that the angel behind me is called a she. She can't wait to see me, and she's looking forward to spending my happy day with me. I'm getting married in June next year. She also then gave me these. She says, they're good luck. I don't know she gave me this crystal. I don't know what that is. Anyone know what that is? She gave me that, and then she gave me this, and she says that's got holy water on it. What was weird about today, I guess another coincidence, and my life is fucking full of them at the moment, is I kicked this down the stairs this morning. I've never carried a crystal on me in my life. My boyfriend had a big collection of like gemstones and I like the look of them, and I put this on the desk. It's usually on the desk. Today I kicked it down the stairs, and because I was heading out, I'm shaking, because I was heading out, I thought I'd just put it in my bag so I don't lose it. That's the day that I get these two. What is going on? What is going on? I got a video of the lady as I walked away, so I weren't making up, and she walked straight to someone else. Maybe she knew all the right things to say. How did she know? How did she know everyone in my family began with J? How does she know that? How does she know? She wanted to read my palm, and I was like, no. And she was like, well, next time we see each other, I'm going to read your palm. I called my mum after, and I was like, the most batshit thing just happened. And I told her, and she was just like, that doesn't make sense. How would she know? On the phone, my mum said that my nan used to frequently, like, have Irish fortune tellers around the house, giving her readings or whatever. I never knew that side of my nan. She was also the most religious out of the family. I really hope it was my nan, because we lost her last October. And I'm not even wearing my engagement ring. How would she know what your special day means? How would she know what all the J's mean? Jack, my brother, is the only name that she said correctly. She went Jade, Jack, Jess. Jack is my brother, very much my nan's favourite. And Jess was our family dog that we lost 3 years ago. Oh my God. I don't know what's going on in my life right now. I keep on squeezing this as well. What? It's a good fiddle toy. I don't know. If any people know about crystals, let me know what this is, what she gave me. I don't know. And then let me know what this is, which I've had for ages. They're very similar colours, actually. Like that bit there looks a lot like that colour there. Maybe it's a bit dark. I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
I feel like this lady must have been drawn to her for some reason. She sensed that there's been something going on, and that's why she specifically stopped to talk to her and obviously give her the crystals. It must have been something similar to the situation that she experienced in the shop, where certain people can obviously just sense things and are friendly enough to want to help you with it. And I think that's what this lady was trying to do, and trying to, prove that she knew stuff by talking about the J names in her family. I think this whole thing is very interesting, and it seems to have kind of opened her up to a more spiritual side because of all the weird things that she's experienced. And I think the idea of goblins versus traditional paranormal things is very interesting. That's something I would definitely love to hear more about. So if you come across any other kind of goblin-y related TikToks, feel free to tag me in those, because I'd love to kind of deep dive in that a little bit further. The next 3 TikToks I'm going to show you are from the user The Bearded Menace. Dave grew up in a haunted house, and in this first TikTok I'm going to show you, he shares a story of an experience his sister had.
I lived in a haunted house, and here are one of my stories. My mom got my sister a job at the local 24-hour mobile gas station about a mile from our house. At this time, it was the early 90s, and we were poor, so we didn't have a car, and we would walk literally everywhere. And I mean everywhere. One night, or early morning, I would say, my mom, my sister, and one of our family friends was finishing a shift. So they were walking back around, I think 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. They were walking back to the house. On the way back, my sister was hearing voices by the nearby forest or woods in that area. Now it's all developed. They have a college there and a retirement home. But before that, it was just the retirement home and woods. So it was very, very wooded. And my sister was hearing voices in the forest, particularly voices calling her name. For the sake of the story, we will call my sister Marianne. So there's, she's been hearing Marianne, just all these voices from the forest. She asked my mom and her family friend, do you guys hear that? And they're like, no, we don't hear a thing. So she ignored it and kept on walking. And as she got away from the wooded area, the voices dissipated. So when they get home, my mom and the family friend decided to stay outside just chatting about the workday and, shitty customers as you do in retail. And my sister decided to go inside and just, get ready to go to sleep, basically. She walks into the living room and she's about to go up the stairs to her bedroom, and she's our old family cat, our beloved cat Pencha, sitting at the top of the stairs. And she's just staring into my sister's bedroom. And my sister's like, hey, Pencha, come down here. What are you staring at? And the cat would not break eye contact with whatever she was looking at in my sister's bedroom. And I believe at this point in time, it was a long time ago, but I believe in this point in time, we already knew there was something up with the house. So my sister was very nervous to go upstairs and see what the cat was staring at. So she walks up the stairs, looks at the cat. Cat's still staring just hard into her bedroom. And my sister looks in her bedroom. And in the middle of the bedroom, her bedroom, she sees a little old lady hunched down in the, just hunched down, like kneeling down in the middle of her bedroom. So my sister obviously is frozen in panic. And she notices like the lady has no hands. It's just nubs where the hands would be. And my sister's staring for a moment. And all of a sudden the lady just kind of turns and looks at my sister. So my sister obviously freaks out. And the lady just books it towards my sister, screaming at her in Spanish. It is all your fault. It is all your fault. Todo es tu culpa. Todo es tu culpa. My Spanish sucks nowadays. And my sister obviously closes her eyes and covers her face. After she lowers her hands, the lady's gone. The lady is no longer there. And she hears the cat hissing. She looks at the cat, and the cat is hissing, tail wide and everything, at my sister. So, of course, what does my sister do? She screams bloody murder, runs downstairs, wakes up the whole house, and basically tells us what happened. That is one of several stories from that house. While that was happening, I'll do this for tomorrow. While that was happening, outside, my mom and the family friend heard noises. But we'll talk about that one tomorrow.
To me, it sounds like that old lady just like ran into her body and possessed her. I mean, I'm assuming if that's actually what happened, he would have said that. You know, there would have been a follow-up like she was being weird for years and we had to exorcise her or something. Like insane like that, if that's actually what happened. But the fact that this lady like charged at her and then just disappeared like right about when she, you know, would have like reached her, and the cat's just like freaking out at her rather than where the lady was like she was previously. To me, that's like the old lady's then in her. Like it's like her spirit is mixed with hers or something like that. Like that doesn't sound good to me in the slightest. The next 2 TikToks I'm going to show you from him are parts 1 and 2 of a mimic story that happens on the exact same night that his sister has a run-in with this old lady.
I grew up in a haunted house, and these are my stories. The mimic was an entity that dwelled in the house. And it would do literally what its name is. It would mimic people's voices, but in a very odd and specific way. Mimic someone's voice exactly to a T, but it would sound like it's in low volume. Picture someone turning on the TV and watching it like at 5% volume. That's how low it would sound. It sometimes would sound like it's in the next room next to you, but it's still at that very low volume. Even if someone was like screaming, it sounded very low, like, hey, help. Like very, very low. I don't know really where it came from or if it was already in the house we moved in, but I do have a feeling it manifested the night my sister saw the old woman in her bedroom. On that night, while my sister was inside being terrified by the old woman, my mom and her friend were outside discussing, you know, work and retail life, as you do when you work in retail. While they were talking, they heard someone like mocking them. That was spooky. Sorry. They heard someone mocking them from the back of the garage. Best way I could describe it is my mom would say something like, hey, how was your day? And it would literally sound like, from the back of the garage. And they were hearing this and they're like, what the hell is that? So as 2 Latino women who are fearless, what did they decide to do? They decided to go investigate. You know, like they're thinking, oh, someone's in the yard, because they heard it clear as day, someone mimicking every single time they said something. And when they went to the back of the garage, nothing. There was like nothing there. And they're like, oh, well, it's late. You know, it's like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. Maybe we imagine it was a long day at work. And then they would hear from now the front of the garage, like just mocking them every single time they said something. And they went to the front of the garage to check it out. Now, you could say it was being a distraction because my sister was by herself upstairs with the old woman, and my mom and her friend didn't go back into the house until they heard my sister scream and then describe what she saw, which was the old woman, the story from yesterday. As I said, I don't know where it came from. It may have manifested itself that night. It may have been brought from the forested area with the old woman. I don't know. But I do know that's the first time we encountered it, and we encountered it many more times after that. But that is the story of the mimic. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll have another story for you tomorrow. I grew up in a haunted house, and these are my stories. So originally, this was going to be added to yesterday's story about the mimic, but I figured I'd make a part 2 just because it would have been like a 10-minute long video if I added all these stories of other encounters with the mimic. So here we go. I was maybe 12 or 13. I think I was in 8th grade, give or take, and I would spend all day outside running in the woods. I mean, from sun up to sundown, I was outside. So for whatever reason, I got into taking a shower like at 1 o'clock in the morning because I'm like, wow, I'm up late, edgy, ooh, right? So one night, I'm in the shower, and it was, I don't know if it's a correlation, I don't think it was, but it was the same night that, or the same day that Princess Diana passed away in a car accident, or a horribly tragic car accident. I'm in the shower, and outside the window right next to the shower, I could hear a woman sobbing, and it was loud. I believe that night I was probably the only one in the house. My mom would work nights. My sister moved out at the time. My brother was in the army. So I was the only one there. And I hear sobbing, and I don't even think I finished getting the soap off me. I just dried myself off, and I was out. I was just like in my mom's bedroom, just chilling. So I'm like, nope, I'm not putting up with that. Not like out, not in the shower. I'm like defenseless. Another time around this age, I was in my brother's room just hanging out. Because again, my brother was in the army. I got to hang out in his coveted room that was always locked. And I think I was reading a comic book, or I forgot what I was doing. But I distinctly heard his voice ask, "What are you doing?" But he was in the army, and he was stationed at the time at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. So obviously it wasn't him. He wasn't even living there. We're in Connecticut. He's in North Carolina. Heard his voice, clear as day. Flash forward a little bit, or a lot of it. It was my buddy Nolan and my buddy Mike, and we were just hanging out in the living room. And we distinctly heard my nephew's voice upstairs, and he called for me, and he distinctly said, "Yo, Uncle Dave." Nephew wasn't even there at the time. I believe he was at a friend's house. He just wasn't in the house, long story short. And I remember my buddy Nolan specifically looking at me, putting his hands in his face, looking back at me. He just goes, "I fucking hate this house," and left. My then girlfriend, now wife, was hanging out in my bedroom upstairs. And she said she distinctly heard my voice call her from the other room. The room across the way. The room specifically that my sister saw the old woman. In the same, I don't know if this was the same night or another night, she said she distinctly heard a growl come from that room that my sister saw the old woman in. And this is many years after. This is like maybe close to 20 years or so after my sister saw the old woman in that room. Same girlfriend, now wife, was in the kitchen watching TV. I believe my mom was asleep in like the bedroom. And it was her and my cat, Sputnik at the time, just chilling. And she heard her voice, her own voice, say, "Come here," from the upstairs bedroom. I think I was out getting something, or I wasn't there at the time. She was just there chilling at the house watching TV. And the cat heard it as well. And I remember her saying like the cat looked at her and upstairs, and the cat was like, "Yo, what the fuck was that?" And my wife just was like, "No." And I think either she left or she just stayed downstairs or whatever, but she kind of ignored it. She's like, "Nope, that's no." Same thing happened to me. I'm hanging out in the kitchen with the cat, watching whatever on TV, and all of a sudden we heard her voice say, "Come here," from the living room. Both me and the cat looked. We walked and investigated in the living room because at the time, Sputnik was my little buddy. Like when we heard or saw something, we go looking for it. Because if she was with me, like we'd go and find it. And sure enough, nothing. No wife or then girlfriend, nothing. My then girlfriend, now wife, I'm going to keep on saying that until I'm blue in the face, once heard singing coming from the bathroom, like a little like humming, like, something similar to that. Again, she was the only one there, and my mom was sleeping. I was off doing something or getting something, and I was on my way home from work possibly, but heard singing coming from the bathroom. Those are the only ones I can think of for now. I tried really hard to pull some from like the old memory bank, but the mimic stuff happened often enough where there were just little stories, and most of them we kind of forgot. I do have one big mimic story, and I will tell that another day, but it was actually a really massive one. But again, that's a long story for another day. Thank you to everyone who's now following me. Like, this is actually pretty cool. And I'm glad to see that we're not the only ones that had these experiences, that other people have seen this. So that means, or have heard this, which means we're not crazy. And we've all kind of experienced it together. And I would love to explore this more with you guys. But thanks for following and hanging out.
To me, it's really interesting that the beginning of the mimic situation happened at the exact same time that this weird old lady possession thing is happening upstairs. It's almost like it's not a coincidence. I mean, I'm sure it's not, because why would that like be happening at the exact same time? It's almost like he said that it was like distracting them from what was happening upstairs. And then for him to continue on and say they had experiences with mimics for years after that. And it was just like all of a sudden, you know, random little mocking noises and this and that. Like, I don't know. It doesn't feel harmful because it doesn't sound like anything horrible happened to any of them. And it's not like, yeah, like it doesn't seem like anything bad happened. It's more of just kind of messing with them and wanting to make them scared is what it seems. But whether or not it actually is harmful, it's still, you know, doesn't make it any easier to live with that because you never know if it's going to do something one of these days. So I think this is like crazy story, especially the fact that there are two like insane incidents that happened at the exact same time in different parts of the house. Our next TikTok is from the user Escalation Bunny, and she tells us about the time when she played a Ouija board with her friends and it predicted one of their deaths.
If you're laying in bed and you actually want to sleep tonight, then you should skip this. For the rest of us who like scaring the shit out of ourselves, welcome. When I was a kid, my best friend asked a Ouija board how old she was going to be when she died. Okay, spoiler, it told her 22. Probably wondering, did she die at 22? I'm going to tell you a story that only 3 people know. Well, 2, because one of them is dead. This story starts about 20 years ago when Christina and I were about 12. We were inseparable and we used to hang out with her older sister all the time. We were at their house a lot. It looked like a normal suburban house on the outside, but I swear you walked in and it was like a portal to the underworld. This house scared the absolute shit out of me. I would hear screams coming from the attic and I would look down this long, dark, creepy hallway, see dark figures like motioning up when I'm trying to sleep at night. To make matters worse, we would sit in her room with the lights dim, pull out the Ouija board and play all the time. But here's the thing, it only ever worked for Christina. It was like she had some weird connection to it. Naturally, her sister and I always thought this was fake and she was just doing it for attention because it would move so fast all over the place, telling us everything. Never worked when we did it alone, so we were a little bit suspicious. Whatever ghost was on the other side of this had diarrhea of the mouth. This was not like you see on the horror movies where it's like, oh, this is slowly moving to yes or no. Like, no, this was like a T9 texting expert ghost that word vomited constantly. So one day we had just finished watching Big Fish, and in that movie there is this creepy old witch, and you can ask her how old you're going to be when you die. Christina loved this idea. Next thing you know, she's pulling out the Ouija board and immediately asking, how old am I going to be when I die? Planchette slowly starts to move towards the numbers and it hovers over the 2. And then it takes a little bit of a movement back and comes right back to the 2. Christina didn't even skip a beat. She grabs her red notebook that she wrote down all of the answers the Ouija board said in it, wrote down, age I'm going to die, 22. Completely calm. Little did we know, something was set in motion and some weird shit started happening for the next 10 years. About a year after the Ouija board incident, Christina's middle school boyfriend tragically died. He was babysitting his 3-year-old little sister, hanging a rope swing for her in the backyard. The parents got home, found the little girl screaming in the backyard, looking at her brother hanging by the tree. He accidentally got tangled in the rope and hung himself. He had been dead for about 3 hours. While Christina was upset about this, she wasn't hysterical, more so distant. And she said to me, I think I'm gonna see him again soon. I just don't see myself growing old. I can't be that upset about it because something like that might happen to me. For the sake of being able to sleep at night, I wrote off a lot of these things. Christina and I grew apart over the years. A couple of other creepy things happened here and there, but for the most part, I think she had a pretty normal life. She got a job, got a fiance, seemed pretty happy from what I could tell. So now we're about 21 and Christina's wedding is coming up. I didn't go to the wedding, but I saw this footage later. Christina's standing at the altar, all smiles, having just been married, trying to take photos with her family. Softly in the background, you hear a little girl singing the Itsy Bitsy Spider. Christina yells super loudly, "Kenna, it's time to take photos!" And the camera just slowly pans left. And then you get a great view of this beautiful little flower girl sitting in a pew, holding a Bible upside down, singing the Itsy Bitsy Spider. She shuts the Bible, takes a couple of steps towards the aisle, and slowly walks forward. I shit you not, this 3-year-old looks up at this bride and says, "Christina, are you gonna die soon?" Freaked out when she heard this, which would be a normal response, but I heard her talk about death so many times as a teenager and just how it didn't faze her that it was a little bit odd to hear her talking about it like this. I really think it's because she was 5 months pregnant. Things had changed for her. About a year after the wedding, Christina was at a cabin with her family in the mountains, having some celebration. Everyone was there, including her newborn son. It seemed like one of those days where nothing could go wrong. Her family always had a 4-wheeler that we would take around the mountains and have a really good time on. At some point in the afternoon, her and a friend decided to take it out for a ride. But that day, something was different. As they rode through the trails, everything seemed all right until Christina screamed, "The brakes aren't working." They flew off of a cliff. Both of them were rushed to the hospital. Christina didn't make it. She died on the way there. 22.
My first question is, did the Ouija board predict her death or cause it? You know, maybe if she didn't ask that question, and I mean, there's no way we could ever know this, but maybe if she didn't ask that question, she'd still be here. And, you know, obviously not to blame her or anything, but it's like, it's just wondering, maybe by asking that question, you cause the spirit to be like, okay, like, let me make up a number and make sure this happens, you know? Maybe it was like she was doomed from the minute she asked that question. Maybe not. Maybe it was just honestly telling her the truth of foreseeing this accident happening. Or maybe the spirit made the accident happen. I don't know. But it is absolutely insane and one of 500 million reasons why I don't believe that you should be messing with Ouija boards. Professional or not, certainly not a child, but professional or not, I don't think people should be messing around with Ouija boards. Our next TikTok is by the user NorthSouth8968. He shares a video with us of a creature or doll of a creature of something I've never seen before and personally never really want to see again.
There have been some developments in the cryptid ecology in this house. So let's see what's going on over there, shall we? I did not put this here. Okay? I also didn't know it was here until I found it here, because I have fun friends. Okay, yeah, he's still there. Hey, how you doing? You enjoying the view? So yeah, he's fine. He's doing great. Yeah.
Obviously that thing is not real. Most likely. It is not real. It is some kind of doll or something. But it's not living. But it is creepy. My body tensed up and I was genuinely terrified as he's panning around this thing's face. It honestly reminds me of one of those clown masks from American Horror Story Cults. I think it's the one that Kai wears, if you've ever seen that season. It really reminds me of that, and it just makes me incredibly uncomfortable. I really was waiting for that thing to like move and grab him, or even just like shift and look straight into the camera. I don't know what that thing is. I don't know why it's there, but I do not like it. And it will for sure be in my dreams tonight. And not good dreams, that's for sure. Our final TikTok of the video is by the user Married to a Lunatic. In this video, she records her husband opening up a secret compartment in their 80-year-old house and pulling out the things that they find inside. You will not believe what they found in there.
We found a hidden compartment in our old house above our shower of all places, and today is the day we are cutting into this thing to seeing what all, if anything, is inside. We did know we were going to be finding some stuff in this thing because we cut a hole in it yesterday thinking that this was going to be opened up into our attic, but come to find out it's a sealed off cabinet from what we are assuming based on how it looks, and this is what we found. In total, there were over 21 items stashed in this hidden compartment. We still cannot agree on exactly what it is. We're assuming it was a cabinet, although we know it didn't open up above the shower, because as you can see, it was completely walled off with the tongue and groove walling, which is throughout our entire house. And anywhere where there was a cabinet, it would have had space, like openings for the doors. So we're thinking maybe it was a cabinet on the bedroom that's on the other side of this bathroom. However, the wall that it would have been on was a completely bare wall. So it's not like it was above like another closet. As you can see, we're pulling out a bunch of wallpaper right now. Some of it was actually super cool and I think I'm going to keep it. Most of it though was falling apart and just in really bad shape. The thing was about this cabinet, it wasn't like all the things were stacked in one spot. It was literally from one side of this cabinet all the way across to the other side. So we had to completely rip down this wall, which we were planning to do anyways. The coolest stuff we found ended up being on the whole other end of this cabinet, which we get to eventually. But if anyone knows what that textured stuff is, it looks like maybe it was wallpaper, but it was in the worst condition. So I would love to know if they had super textured wallpaper at one time, because that's what a lot of this stuff was. And it was the stuff that was disintegrating the most. This was whenever he was finally able to start reaching some of the cool like paperwork and stuff we could see over in the far corner, but it isn't until the very last few things that we take out where I was really in shock. The oldest dated items we found were from 1941 and 1940, which our house wasn't built until 1948, so again, confusing. But it was cool to find some super like old antique stuff. We love to go antique shopping, so this was honestly right up our alley. And you can tell my husband wouldn't even let me get on the freaking ladder so that I could see all this stuff in there as he was pulling it out. And in just a second, I'm about to be happy that I wasn't up there because the creepy stuff is about to be pulled out. But here's another Calcasieu, whatever, Marine Bank deposit slip. It was in this moment that we all should have stopped what we were doing, because what he just found was a box of poison tablets. I mistakenly read that as antiseptic tablets and immediately thought like antiseptic wound care type thing. No, this was really poison. We should have stopped. We should have all put on gloves. We did immediately wash our hands at this point. We did put the poison tabs in a Ziploc bag so that no one else would end up touching this. But if y'all hear about a Louisiana family dying from touching 80-year-old poison, it was us. So once the poison tablets were put up, I had this false sense of security at this point because I'm thinking we're almost done. It's more like old paper, paid deposit slips from some kind of loan. And then we take a quick look around and he tells me there's still a couple things left. I didn't see this part of the video because this is my husband filming this. So he did not prepare me for what he was about to hand me next. Someone give this man a round of applause, because with a straight face, he then handed me a bottle of poison. And like an idiot, I took it. I mean, if he's trying to poison me, I don't know why he's doing it while I'm recording him. But yeah, not just one bottle of poison. You guessed it, 2 bottles of poison. And on further examination, I am putting this into a Ziploc bag. So it's not like we're like leaving it out on the counter. But we looked into it and it is mercury is what it says in the ingredients. I'll give you a close-up picture at the end of this video. There's some other random items. At this point, like I'm waiting for him to like pull out a shiv and like stab me because obviously he's trying to kill all of us. But like idiots, we keep going. I don't know. We're like perfectly fine now. But like looking back on this, I'm like, we are all just complete idiots. And like idiots, we kept going and taking the rest of the stuff out of here. And if anyone has any knowledge about mercury, it's 80-year-old mercury. So will this kill us? We have not opened the bottles, nor will we. One was completely empty. One still has stuff in it. We also have what we're assuming is mercury tabs. How do we dispose of this? It's the craziest thing. So this is the last bit. That wall that I point at is the back of the cabinet above our linen closet. So if it was all connected at once, it was just a huge long cabinet. The way stuff was stored in here still is baffling. We did find a treasure map on the back of one of the pieces of wallpaper, but we're keeping that for ourselves. But if you have any other questions or if you have any answers, please leave them.
It started off so like innocent and like what you would expect, you know. I mean, although I guess I don't know why there's that many just like random little piece of wallpaper, but it's what you'd expect, you know, like old wallpaper. It's very, you know, I'm just tossing things in here because I don't know what else to do with it. I want to know why there was poison up there. I know the bottle said that it was like antiseptic. And a lot of the comments are saying that back in the day, they had to label a lot of this kind of stuff with the word poison on it, so people would know not to drink it. So it may or may not be like poison, but the poison pills are for sure poison. And I'm just wondering what it's doing up there. Did, you know, someone poison their husband and then hide the evidence and board it up? I don't know. I would really love to know more about these and why they were up there. I love to know what the liquids were in the bottles. Obviously, they didn't open them up for safety reasons because you don't want to accidentally poison yourself trying to investigate. And there's no update from what I can tell that they got like results back from sending it somewhere to get it tested. So I have no idea. So I guess it's just kind of like a mystery at this point. It's rather unsettling though. That is all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts on any of the TikToks I shared with you. And if you come across any terrifying TikToks that you'd like to see me include in a future video, please feel free to tag me in them. My social media links are all down below. I also realized I never talk about this on here, but feel free to check out my Instagram and TikTok as well if you are into spooky special effects makeup. That is what I do on those other platforms. I am a special effects makeup artist. I know I post, obviously, these kinds of videos on here, but on Instagram and TikTok, and you've probably seen some of my shorts, I do spooky special effects makeup. So feel free to check out my other social media if you are interested in that. I have a bunch of kind of spooky, cool Christmas looks coming out soon for you guys. But if you guys liked this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, and I will pop a couple of video suggestions up on the screen here for you in a second. Please click the subscribe button down below and turn my post notifications so you never miss a video. I post every Sunday and sometimes Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And other than that, again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.